Hi, folks. Welcome to Walking on the Weene Side, which is part of It Matters Radio. Today, I have a very nice lady whose name is Avara Yaron, and I'm going to just read a little bit about her. She is an entrepreneur and an artist. She says that she's a periodic shapeshifter and has earned a film degree, a spiritual counseling license, and has explored life as a painter, filmmaker, jewelry and handbag designer, counselor, group facilitator, retreat leader, chef, and nutritional educator. Whew, that's a lot. She's an American expat living in Bali, in Indonesia, where she has dreamed up 2 cafes that serve plant-based cuisine. In the midst of all that food preparation, writing has taken over Avara's life, and she gave birth to the Girl Submerged trilogy of novels, the first of which, Surging Tides, is the one that I have read. I don't believe the other 2 are available yet, are they? They're in process. Okay. And that book, I read it on Kindle, I will tell you, which is unusual for me. My wife likes Kindle. I like holding my hand books, but I did read it on my wife's new Kindle. And when you get finished, folks, with this show, if you're interested, among other places, you can obviously go to Amazon and look for Avara Yaron, Y-A-R-O-N. You can also visit her website, www.girlsubmerged.com. So why Girl Submerged? I know because I've read the book, but why Girl Submerged?
I'm writing about a character who is a woman of undisclosed age. I just left it sort of floating exactly how old she is. Mm-hmm. And she's dealing with all of her watery emotions, and she feels quite submerged within them. Mm-hmm. So I'm writing, I would say that this is very much women's literature, but I'm enjoying the fact that men are reading the book and really taking in the themes as well. So it's the watery world of women's emotions, and she is not only submerged in her discovery of her buried emotional trauma, sexual trauma from early on in her life, but then she's submerged in a new relationship that is extremely and exquisitely intimate, and learning to deal with that level of intimacy and feeling quite submerged in that as well.
Yeah, and then of course she's also literally submerged in water, and that triple play was very nice. She is a child of the water, if you will, and we even learn how she learned to swim, which is kind of a cool look in the backwards in the book. But she is into, obviously it draws very much on your expertise because she is a filmmaker whose specialty is underwater shoots. And she loves to dive. So this Submerged has many aspects to it.
Yes, and there's a pivotal scene that takes place underwater while she's working as an underwater cinematographer. And there are some nice descriptions of fish along the way, and manta rays.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially manta rays. The scene I think you're talking about is the one, among other things, there are manta rays present, but that's not what makes it pivotal. Yeah. This is a woman who is having a tremendously dramatic life journey, both inwardly and outwardly. Yes. Yeah. So it is a book about great change. But it's also, I think, interestingly, in some ways about things that are almost timeless in their nature. And I was wondering, of course, you live in Indonesia, you live in Bali, but I was wondering how much, and much of the book is set there. Some is set back here in the States, but most of this first book is set in Bali. And I was wondering, do you think that the culture and environment and even music, etc., of this very traditional world, Bali, influenced your understanding of your character?
Very much so. Bali's had a huge impact on me personally. So, and I set the book. Not all of it takes place in Bali. It takes place in 4 different islands in Indonesia, and one of them is fictitious, but it's very influenced by my experience in Bali. And Bali, because of the intensely rooted, grounded Balinese culture that's still really pervasive today, despite all of the tourism that has just grown by leaps and bounds. That culture creates a vortex of change. And so people are drawn to this tiny little speck of land on the map. And people come from all over the world to Bali, and it's really this swirling vortex of change. And it's kind of hard to imagine that some place like that exists until you go there and experience it. But people really do go there and change their lives. And this character in Girls Submerged, her name is Serena, and she was ready for a big change, but she had no idea what was coming down the pike. And then there she is, held in this very traditional culture. And yet, when you say it's timeless, it is, because that kind of transformation, when we're opening to our own deeper nature, is timeless and not cultural specific. But there is something unique about Bali that holds space for people to transform spiritually.
Now, one of the things that I was very aware of in the book is that there is a tremendous influence. While Bali is and Indonesia are primarily Muslim, but there's a huge Hindu influence as well. In the religious culture, of course, then there's the religious traditions that go way back before that even. But one of the things that's very interesting to me, of course, is in the book is there's a heavy influence of what is commonly called Tantric Buddhism, especially through yoga. And I was wondering to what degree, now I don't know a lot about this stuff, I was wondering to what degree you had been aware of that part of the book, or whether that was something you just absorbed from that part of the Hindu influence that came over to Indonesia, because it came over after kind of like that separation into the tantric traditions.
Bali is, Indonesia has been a melting pot of many different influences. And it's true that Indonesia as a whole, which is thousands, 15 to 17,000 islands, is the largest Muslim nation, but that's really the top layer of the veneer. If you scrape below that, there's Buddhist and Hindu influences, and Bali is Hindu. Mm-hmm. Bali is the Hindu island surrounded by all these Muslim islands, but there is a lot of Buddhist influence, and then each island has its own animistic culture and language as well. Language. And very, very recently, it's really just the last 20 20 years, less than 20 years, maybe 15, that Bali has become the center for yoga internationally. Mm-hmm. And I've been practicing yoga much longer than that. I've been going to Bali for about 21 years now. Even before living there, I was going there every year and manufacturing there. And there didn't used to be yoga there. I was practicing yoga living in Los Angeles. Wow. And now Bali's become this center for yoga. And so it's not so much because of Bali, but because yoga has been a part of my life personally for a very long time that it showed up in the book.
Yeah, well, but there is an interesting connection. Okay, and notice I didn't say Buddhism, I said Tantric Buddhism.
Yeah.
Okay, and that generally, it actually is kind of a weird offshoot, and it's actually a melding together, historically, of Hindu and Buddhist practice. And the idea behind it was to basically break free by breaking out. And so the past of tantric practices included sexual orgies and things like that one certainly does not associate with the Buddha and with Buddhism. And the thing about it is that the joining point often for people of the tantric kind of approach, as I understand it, and again, I'm not a scholar in this area, is the Kama Sutra. And one of the things about your book is you don't hold back at all in sharing the sex.
It's quite explicit, isn't it?
Yes, it's explicit and wonderfully written. I love the fact that you use words that are often not associated with sex to come across like to talk. I think at one point you used the word succulent, if I recall. I may be wrong, but it's words like that you use to describe sex that I just thought, boy, this is good creative writing. So, folks, while you imagine some succulent sexuality, watch this little bit of a break, and we'll be right back. Side. My guest today is Avara Yaron. And Avara, you're not in Bali now, right? You're in the States visiting.
Yes. I'm currently in Los Angeles, traveling around the U.S. promoting Girls Submerge.
Okay, great. And I'm glad you're joining us so we can help promote it. And we were just talking about the succulent sexuality. It really is very rich. And one of the things that I found very meaningful in the book is that your main character, has left one relationship, and one in which the sex was anything but succulent. And she is aware of this at a level, and I like the fact you are to go in another totally other direction now, Buddhism. You're very much in keeping with the Jungian tradition of awareness.
Well, the book starts with a dream, and there are dreams woven through the book, dreams and memories, as you mentioned, and visions, because what's happening as she uncovers her buried trauma and then begins healing it through this very loving and erotic relationship is that she's opening to parts of herself that she didn't even really know existed before. And her spirituality is awakening as her sexuality is evolving.
Mm-hmm. In a way, it's very much of what we would call a New Age book.
That's my orientation. Mm-hmm. I would say I'm part of a community in Los Angeles that identifies itself as New Age, ancient thought wisdom.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's drawing from all ancient wisdom, and of course, if it's true wisdom and it's truth, then it's timeless.
Yeah, it should be timeless and archetypal, which is, of course, the Jungian concept. One of the things I like about your kind of New Age approach is it doesn't take place in Sedona. I'm sorry if you're a fan of Sedona, folks. I apologize. But I love the reality here is that this kind of wisdom comes from within. It's not found because you're at this particular place.
No, she's discovering herself. And initially, that's pretty difficult. Mm-hmm. She's facing some really difficult memories coming up. Incest memories, but part and parcel with unpacking those really difficult parts are the awakening. So she's realizing why her life was unfolding the way it was, and things that had been mysterious are becoming clear. And at the same time, there are these mystical synchronicities that are happening. And she's surrendering into them. She's released her resistance.
I think the word synchronicity is the word I was going to be using in my next comment, because it is an interesting study in synchronicity in the sense that when the person is ready, when the soul is ready, the opportunity will present.
Absolutely.
And has that been true in your life?
Constantly. And there's nothing I love more than a beautiful day full of synchronicity. Yes. Mm-hmm. And I think when we're really in tune with ourselves and we're allowing the flow of life, then those synchronicities are just a natural part of life. They just seem strange or odd, or a lot of people brush them off as coincidences when we're not in tune with them, when we're not in tune with ourselves.
Good point. Now, she goes is part of this. First of all, let's talk about her lover.
Sure.
Right? Go on, talk about him. Get the ladies in our audience drooling.
Okay. Well, I want to preface it by saying that the way that I wrote this book, and the second one already is finished, and I wrote it the same way. I didn't have a blueprint. I didn't have an outline. I sat down, and it just started pouring through me. And every day I would sit down, and more would pour out, and I didn't know where this was going. So when my character has had this dramatic experience underwater that's changed her life and left her just feeling sort of beaten up and raw and needing to recover, I was as surprised as she was when this absolutely gorgeous man walks into her life and takes an interest in her. And she feels resistant to him at first.
Oh, she's distrustful. I mean, she having been a victim of abuse, I think it's very difficult for her, and also having had this kind of lousy ending kind of relationship in the States, she was pretty distrustful, wasn't she?
She was in great distress, and yes, she has big trust issues. And so along comes this man who seems to be total ladies' man, beautiful to look at, beautiful to watch move, the yoga instructor, very graceful, and she's irresistibly attracted to him and doesn't want to allow that to be. So she tries to resist it.
Okay, I have to ask you, is that autobiographical?
Well, I haven't met Ricardo, but this is definitely not a memoir. It's fiction, but a lot of the experiences are my experiences. So, no, I haven't experienced this exact relationship, but many of the things that she experiences sexually, I have experienced, or I don't think I would be able to write about them. I realized when I was well into writing this book, many drafts in, that I was taking a lot of experiences that people tend to say there are no words for, such as mystical experience, ecstatic sexual experience, and then trying to find a way to articulate it so that when someone reads it, hopefully they get a taste of that.
Interesting use of word taste there, because food and taste play a significant part in the book, and of course you are a chef, a nutritional educator. I take it you're a vegan.
I was raw vegan for 8 years, and now I'm probably about 95% vegan, but not complete.
And completely vegetarian? Or?
Yes. Sometimes I have dairy for it.
And in the book, there's a great deal of reference to food that is from that kind of vegan position, and you make it sound so sumptuous.
Well, the lead male character, Ricardo, and it's an interracial relationship. So he is born in the Dominican Republic of a Jamaican mother and Dominican father, and she's a white girl from Encino, California, and that's not really a big issue for them at all. It's hardly mentioned in the first book, except just as a description of, they're getting to know each other. But
they're in Indonesia. In Indonesia, racial issues, not that big a thing.
Well, Indonesia is such a melting pot Bali in particular is such a melting pot. And yes, they're in an alternative culture to either of their backgrounds, and neither of them lives there. So they're in this sort of world outside of their world, and sort of time outside of time. And then later in book 2, they go back into that other world, and all those issues rise up and become larger. But for them, it's not an issue. It's just beautiful facts about each other that they're learning. And he's, I think, a very beautiful man, not just on the inside. Not just on the outside. He's beautiful to look at. His work is as a fashion model when he's not in Indonesia. But he's been through a lot of trauma of his own and addiction as a result of that. And
we don't want to give away too much about that because we want people to read the book. And I want to warn you, don't tell too much about his backstory because we don't want to.
Right. And sometimes I don't even want to say too much about him because, like I say, she's very surprised when she meets him, and I was surprised when he showed up in the book as I was writing.
And with that sense of surprise, let's experience this, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Walking on the Weene Side. We're talking with Avara Yaron, whose book, Girls Submerged, it's actually the first one is called Surging Tides. It's the first of a trilogy. And we just learned that the second one is written, but it's not out yet. And you can find her on Amazon, and you can get the book in Kindle, and you can get it in print. You can also go to Avara's website, which is www.girlsubmerged.com. And I was talking about the food, which really impressed me because it sounded so luscious. And of course, I think of that part of the world, and I think of all the wonderful spices and the wonderful tastes and the wonderful vegetables and fruits that are available there. But that context of that food in the book is largely during a kind of it's not a seminar. What would you call it that these women have all gone on?
Well, the first there's really food throughout the book,
Yeah.
even in the not so great relationship. The guy was a good cook.
Oh yeah.
But the kind of food changes, and then there is a women's retreat
Mm-hmm.
that is in the middle of the book, and that has beautiful sumptuous spreads.
Mm-hmm.
And color coordinated with the color themes of the retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been a plant-based food chef for many years and had a couple of restaurants, plant-based food restaurants. So I've been immersed in the world of food and beautiful plant-based food, and paying attention to color and textures and the presentation as well as the flavors. And the food in Bali is really incredible. The healthy food. It's a mecca for healthy food as well as yoga.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, I was drawn to be there. And I wondered if the descriptions of the food in the book were too much. It was just over the top.
I'm a foodie, so not for me. But you know, you had to have that to balance. You also you had to have it to balance the sex. You needed the richness. The only thing I would have liked is a little bit more of some of the other richness of sensory experience. I would have liked the book to have been a little longer and had more of the underwater experiences. I would have liked to have had more of the vegetation, because I think your description is so wonderfully strong. And I think you really are appealing to our sensory awareness, which is so much a part of what one develops when one does yoga.
Yes, and just being on a tropical island, there are descriptions of the very verdantly green ravines that they're driving through, because they're driving around on a little motorbike and going through the jungle. So that is there. My editor actually wanted the book to be even a little shorter. So
well, that goes to show that we don't always have to agree with our editors, right? I hope that as the books go forward, as the next two, that you will continue that richness of description and sensory awareness.
I promise.
Good. Now, at this retreat, this is a fascinating retreat. Have you ever been on a retreat like that, a women's retreat like that? Or was this something you made up in your mind out of your own head?
I facilitated women's retreats, and I have another one coming up in November in Bali.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a women's retreat that I'm co-facilitating with two other women who are yoga instructors. Mm-hmm. Called Cultivating Pleasure, and it's on the website, November 9th through the 16th. So yes, I have been on them. I have facilitated them. I have facilitated women's circles, and I love working with groups of women, and I think it's one of the most potent ways that we facilitate change is groups of women coming together right now.
I thought the integration of not just food, and color, but dance and makeup and fantasizing and freedom to be in this retreat was just wonderful. So I want to ask you, if I dress in drag, can I come to the one?
Probably not a good idea, but I have been doing women's circles. I've been calling them empowerment circles as promotion for the book, and I've been describing them as, or billing them as for women and those who love them, to allow men who are supportive to come into the circles to join the discussion. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about sexual abuse, and I talk about my own personal experience. Mm-hmm. And in order to create a safe place for women to share their experiences, but not just leaving it that. Call it an empowerment circle. So we're talking about how we've found our ways to empower ourselves, and actually include some ceremonial elements at the end of the circle to sort of wash away the past and allow us to cultivate our pleasure, which is what the retreat that I'm facilitating is called. So I really believe in women empowering themselves by allowing themselves to cultivate their pleasure, which includes food and dance and art and all forms of sensuality as well as sexuality.
I'm glad you mentioned dance. Gee, we're melding so nicely here, because my next comment was going to be about the role of dance in particular, because your principal character, she comes to this retreat kind of, well, because her new boyfriend, this man she now loves tremendously, has invited her basically to come. But then she becomes not only a part of the group doing the retreat, but she also helps to lead something. She leads a meditation each morning. And her method of meditation is dance, which, of course, is a beautiful alternative. And again, coming back to this notion of the tantric. Now, those of us who do know anything about it know that tantric Buddhism merges into Hinduism, and particularly into the worship of the god Shiva. And Shiva is the god of dance.
Shiva Nataraj.
I'm sorry?
Shiva Nataraj, the dancing Shiva.
Yeah. And she dances to save the world, basically, is part of the mythology behind it. And so one of the things I was going to ask you, and I'm joking, but I'm serious, is if you thought about wearing a blue necklace.
A what necklace?
Blue. Color blue.
Why blue?
Shiva.
I have a green one.
Yeah. But Shiva is, of course, the blue-throated goddess.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. And
no, I hadn't thought about that, because blue isn't one of the colors that goes so well with my own coloring. Yeah. But as a former jewelry designer, and I designed fine jewelry for 14 years, and still do, on occasion, do custom pieces. I used a lot of blue sapphires.
Mm. Did you design the jewelry you're wearing?
Yes.
I love those earrings.
Thank you. Yeah. Kashipur. So yes, Serena discovers a form of dance, or it's more like a form of meditation, which is a dance, because she's having a hard time getting still, sitting still. You know, her mind is still clicking away. And so she stands and she just gently sways her hips, and she finds that it kind of spirals her inward, and that becomes her practice.
Yeah, when I most want to meditate personally, I like to walk. I have always found walking was my method of becoming kind of allowing my soul and my brain to empty and to find kind of connection to the universe. If I walk, especially if I'm walking like a labyrinth, love labyrinths.
Yes. I think a lot of people find that it's easier to still their mind when their body is busy.
Mm-hmm.
and become very aware of their body, you know, a little itch here, a little discomfort there when trying to sit still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your body does not want to cooperate with stillness. Yeah, we want, naturally our bodies want to be climbing through trees, swinging through trees and going, ooh, like the apes we are. Especially, I think, men. I think women are a little more advanced than men.
But I think that the still seated meditation is more masculine in some ways. But I do seated meditation myself more often than I do the dancing meditation, but I do use it as something I kind of discovered for myself, and so it found its way into the book.
Well, I think it's a very lovely part of the book, again, because this book, and I'm going to remind people of the title, it's the first book in the Girl Submerged trilogy. It's called Surging Tides. It's available through Amazon and I'm sure many other places. And people can also go to your website, Avara, which is www.girlsubmerged.com. But one of the things I love about the book is that it is so aware. Your writing is so informed by the experiential dimension of being, the sensory. It's not just words, but it's feelings, it's movements. And folks, if you like good sex, I certainly recommend it. But I also recommend it if you like good writing and if you like to explore these kinds of new age, heightened sensitivity, timelessness of soul kinds of ideas that we've been discussing today. So, Avara, thank you very much, first of all, for having written a book I enjoyed reading. And
I have the paperback with me. So.
Yeah, oh, good. Yeah, since I read it on Kindle, I move it over a little more. They couldn't see quite the whole, no, the other way. Yeah, there you go. See it, folks? Girl Submerged, Surging Tides. And Avara, thank you very much for walking on the Weene side.
Thank you so much for interviewing me.